That night, one of the boys ended up overdosing and dying from a fentanyl overdose. And that was the first time I ever tried it. We're going like 140. The cops get behind us. The guy that was driving the bike, I kid you not, touched his foot to the cop's bumper and went around him, and we sped off through the Floral City light. God saved me. And I know that I have to do something with that because there's a reason why he brought me back out of that. And if I can help at least just like one person.
Welcome back to another episode of the BTLfield podcast. I'm here today with my friend Loie, and she is going to share a really powerful testimony. Just to start out, I guess we'll dive right into it of when you were on the streets and how you got there.
So basically, I want to say that I was like 19 years old, and I went to go hang out with some people and go to a little party at their house. Well, that night, one of the boys ended up overdosing and dying from a fentanyl overdose. And that was the first time I ever tried it. The boy that had overdosed, that I witnessed overdose and pass away, his friend had robbed his pockets as he was gasping for air. And that's one of the things that I've lived with. I will never forget, I was very messed up that night, and I was very in and out. But I can remember a lot of things that really just stuck with me. You don't care. If somebody is overdosing on something, they want it because they know that that is the most strong, powerful stuff that you have right now. So they want that feeling. Completely held down by its power. You could go to the edge of death and kiss the devil, and you just want to come back and say, I want more. That is extreme to feel. So that was pretty traumatizing for me.
Yeah.
And I just never wanted to remember that night and what had happened. A lot of people also kind of blamed me for being there and for doing the drugs with him. And that's something that I really haven't lived down because people still say a lot of mean things to me. And I feel so sorry for the boy's family because he was 19 years old.
Yeah.
You know, that's really young.
Yeah. I mean, we can only control our own actions. And so having other people tell you that is just so horrible and kind of led to keeping you in it. Because like you said, that's kind of what you didn't want to remember. You didn't want to remember that night. And so you got further into it. So where did that get you? What ended up happening as you continued?
My dad just got tired of me and my boyfriend. He overdosed a couple of times at my dad's house. We had to call the paramedics out for him. It was a big thing. And he was just really getting tired of taking care of me and doing things for me when I just didn't want to help myself. So, and it was just like lack of respect, for myself and others. And I just was on a downward spiral once my dad got tired of everything and kicked me out. I didn't know where to go, so I just hung out on the streets. And it's not really hard to meet people when you're just hanging out on the streets and on the sidewalk. It's not very hard to meet a backpacker that's walking by that may be addicted or some other homeless people.
Yeah.
So I eventually just started hanging out at random houses around the county that were very known for drug trafficking and things like that. And that's eventually how God saved my life.
Wow.
Because I was putting myself in all these dangerous scenarios. And eventually when I got arrested, my body was so tired and beat down by the drugs that I was doing something that they call twist-a-flexing, which means that you've been awake for so long, you haven't fed yourself, you haven't had water, and I had also done other drugs on top of it, so my body was up and down. I would fall asleep and I would be moving in my sleep the whole time. just like weird movements, a lot of different stuff. And
like demonic.
Yes.
Even. Oh, wow.
Yes. And
oh my gosh.
It's something very common that you see in meth users.
Wow.
Because they stay up for days. I've seen people stay up for 2 months straight. Can you imagine?
No.
Can you imagine the things that you must see, the things that you must feel, that your body may trick you to hear things and see things and do things, and you just have no idea what's going on at all.
Yeah, especially if you're also on drugs. Like being up that long without drugs would be insane, and you'd start like seeing things.
Right.
Wow.
Well, there's also the other side of it, depending on what drug you're using with fentanyl, it's very scary. These people are scared that if they sit down and their body is at rest while they're using, that they may OD or pass out or something of that sort. So you will see people standing fully up, but their head is hanging or their hands are hanging to their feet, and they'll be standing for an hour or two. They just fall down and they'll get back up, and then they'll go back into doing the same thing. And it's just a repetitive cycle for them. And they're addicted to that.
Yeah.
That feeling that takes them into a deep sleep, even for just a little bit. But then you come back from it and it's even worse.
Yeah.
Everything is even worse because you're like, I have to have this. I have to have this. It's like you want it more than food, more than water, more than seeing your kids, more than seeing your family. It's just the most important thing to you at that moment.
Yeah. And feeling that way about it is how it just continues to pull you back in. It's like you're drowning.
Yes.
Getting out seems impossible.
And you know what? It's very funny you say that, because there was a song I listened to for a very long time, and it was a girl. She had a heroin addiction, if you listen to the song, and she's underwater and she has ropes tying her down at the bottom of a pool.
Wow.
And it's a fight for her to get out of these ropes. And I always told people, I said, I can see through it. I can see through, like you're underwater, under the surface, and you can see the surface, but you just can't break through it.
Yeah.
And it's like an endless nightmare of, I can see everything on the other side of this, but it's so hard to get there. I overdosed, and that was one of the hardest things that I've ever been through in my life. Fighting through that Narcan that's bringing you out of that high is hard, is extremely hard. You're sick, you're hot, you're cold. It's just all of the things that you can imagine. You feel like you're gonna die. And I did feel like I was gonna die, and I asked the person that I was with who Narcaned me to call the paramedics. And they were scared to call them to me because they didn't want anything to happen to them. So I sat in a dirty, rat-infested camper and had to come off of these drugs in the hardest way possible.
Wow.
And then after I came out of it, I had to walk because I had nowhere to go. So my body's recovering from the Narcan, and I'm walking on the side of the road. And it was something that was not even processing in my brain, though. That, oh my gosh, I just died. I wanted more. I wanted to know where the stuff was that I had overdosed on. That's the only thing I was worried about when I came out of it. And everything that you're putting yourself through, you have to remember, if you're ever going to recover, you have to recover from all of that. I was a prostitute in the streets for a while. I want to make sure that I include that because that is something that many women do in the streets. They don't have a job, and if they don't have a boyfriend that supplies them of drugs, they're trying to get one. They're sleeping with men for drugs. And even if they don't consider it prostitution, that's really what it is. They're giving parts of their body up to these people because they just want that so bad, or they just want attention or affection or anything. It's a very hard life to live. I have slept with a lot of married men as well. And And that is something that I've had to live down, because I just can't imagine going home to your wife and your kids. And that was something that I just didn't even think about. So you're not just ruining yourself, but you don't realize how many other lives you're ruining, because your one life makes a ripple. We actually got in a high-speed chase one night. It's not funny, but I'm like so happy that I survived, because it was insane. We didn't have a tag on the bike or anything like that. He didn't have a license. Yeah, he didn't have a license. So, and I just went and got something. So I'm like, I have to make it home. Even if I just do a little bit of this and then they catch me, I have to make it home with this stuff. So we're going like 140. The cops get behind us, and I remember seeing the lights on his helmet, on his bike helmet.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking to myself, like, I know he's gonna run. There's no way he's not gonna run, because he's a convicted felon, I don't know how many times. And they definitely know who he is. So, but we ended up running, and there was another cop that just so happened to be in front of us, and they had called it over the radio. He stopped to try to get us to wreck. The guy that was driving the bike, I kid you not, touched his foot to the cop's bumper and went around him, and we sped off through the Floral City light all the way out to the island, all through all those curbs, everything. He's going 140. I'm punching him in the helmet, and I'm like, let me off. I'm like, I'm gonna die. There's no way that I'm gonna survive this night. It was a lot. I could not believe what had just happened. All of the things that you do for drugs that hurt your family, that hurt your friends, and eventually they get tired of that and they will leave you.
Yeah.
And then you have no one but God.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize that that's the person that you have, and how amazing that is, because you're just so in a fog.
Yeah, and you're not looking for anything else. Like, God's there waiting for you. So what got you to that point?
I've been arrested many times before. I had bags and bags of other people's stuff. When I got released from jail, I had no idea where all this stuff came from at all. I said, this is mine? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then also how healthy I had gotten being in jail. I got out and none of my clothes fit me. I ended up just gaining a lot of weight and getting happy, and my body got healthy.
Yeah.
And I was never able to have a kid before, and they told me that it would be hard for me to have a kid because I didn't produce enough of the hormones.
Really?
I got sober, and that is what got my body working.
Yeah.
And then I had my blessing. So
That's amazing.
yeah, he definitely took a huge part out of me. He's like my heart outside of my body. And I couldn't possibly live without him. So
Yeah.
I can't even imagine going back to where I was. Because, you know, it's so dark. I can't believe that that's where I was. I was an IV user, and I really didn't discriminate against drugs at all. It did not matter what it was, whether it be crack, whether it be heroin, fentanyl, Molly. I've done pretty much all of it. And it's crazy to say because I'm only 23 years old. That has taken a huge toll on my body. And I wake up sometimes and I'm like, I cannot believe.
So when you were in prison, what did you experience?
It was a fight because I'm a young kid. I'm being thrown into a jail with a bunch of grown women who run the streets and think that they are the biggest, best person in the world, you know? So I go in and instantly they're giving me a hard time, which I'm thankful for that because it made me not want to go back. I was actually not in prison, but I was imprisoned, which I was in jail.
Okay.
Several different jails within a short period of time. I got arrested one day and then they let me out, and 2 weeks later I got arrested again. Everything was slowly falling into place for God to sit me down and say to me, you need me. My bunkie who went to prison for killing her baby, I think he was under a year old, he was a newborn. And she actually was the one that sat me down and said, do you want to read the Bible with me? Can you imagine, out of all of the people who have not been through that sort of thing, all the people in there that were very hateful and stuff, not one of them said, hey, let's go read the Bible.
Yeah.
And a lot of people judged that girl. A lot of people judged her because they knew her charges, but I knew what was in her heart and how she cared for me.
Yeah.
So, and I know that's not my place. It's God's place at the end of the day. So I loved her like I love my family. Whenever I left, she's actually been somebody that I think about often.
Yeah.
So
definitely, especially she planted that seed, the huge seed for you,
Yes.
you know, and just to be there for you in that time. Like, hey, this is how much darker it got for me. Don't let that happen to you now that you are a mother.
my street boyfriend at the time, he is now serving 7 years in prison for drug trafficking. Him getting arrested is what led to me getting arrested and starting my rap sheet with the law, which once you start, if you don't keep up on it, it's like you're going back to jail. There's no point.
Yeah.
So, and if you're living in the streets, it also makes it hard to get to court. It also makes it hard to, you know, you're on a lot of different drugs and you just don't even care.
Yeah.
So, but his mom ended up telling me that God had told her to take me in and to help me. And I was always just taken back by that. I'll never forget her saying that to me. And then eventually I ended up getting baptized in the county jail. So, and I just needed God at that point in time. And that is when you find him, is when you're backed into a corner and you have no one and nowhere else to go. And then somebody mentions this amazing person to you and you're like, that's what I need. I just have to have that. If all of these people have this peace and they have that, you know, I have to at least try. So, and I ended up staying sober whenever I got out. I stayed away from all of the people that I was hanging out with before, and it was incredibly hard. I was depressed.
Yeah.
I had no friends at the point because, you know, I was trying to get my life together, and I knew that I was going to go to prison if I didn't do it this time. I've done a lot of courses throughout my time being on probation. I went to live streams. I did Embrace Grace with one of the other churches.
Okay.
So, and that helped me stay on a straight path in recovery groups. That is like one of the main things that's talked about is God and how God can get you through this, and you know how you have to live to the standards of Jesus. You just really have to in order to get through all of this negativity and all of these things that you're going to face throughout recovery. And especially this church.
Yeah.
This church has helped me immensely, and everyone cheers me on with my sobriety. I didn't feel deserving of all of this.
Yeah.
All of these beautiful things that I have now. It's a miracle. It's a miracle to me. My baby is a miracle, and being able to have such beautiful people, and it's really life-changing to have everything that I have now.
And so at this point, how long have you been sober?
2 years. Yeah, I just celebrated my 2 years.
Congratulations.
I didn't even think that I would make a year because I'm like, this is really hard.
Yeah.
I'm really stressed. This is really hard. There's no way I'm going to be able to do this. And God saved me. And I know that I have to do something with that because there's a reason why he brought me back out of that. And if I can help at least just like one person, even if you don't seek treatment, talk to somebody. Just talk to somebody because it can make you feel better. A lot of people don't want to seek treatment and they're just not to that point yet, and that's okay. I don't discriminate on that at all. I was not ready for a long time. So, but you just have to keep pushing and telling them you're worthy. God loves you and you can get through this no matter what. No matter how hard it seems right now, just imagine if you worked as hard on the good things as you did on the bad things. Imagine what doors you could open for yourself, but you can't do it without God.
Yeah.
You have to do it with him. He can hold your hand the whole way and you won't feel alone at all.
Yeah.
Because every night I went to sleep on that bunk. After I found Jesus, I prayed to him every night. every night, and I would sit there and read the Bible, and slowly my personality and my peace just came.
Yeah.
And people told me, you act different. You act very different than you used to, and thank God. Thank you. I've decided that no one's even watching but God.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna say that thing and I'm gonna do that thing. Like today at church, we had a gentleman come in that I just got a vibe from. I said, I feel like he kind of knows what I've been through, and I feel like I know what he's been through. So I went over and I made it a point to say hi. Just something made me move. God made me move and said, you have to go talk to this person. This is one of the people that you need to talk to. And I just found that so beautiful. In the middle of service and everything, I'm like walking through the crowd. Hey! So God just, he works in such amazing ways, and he works through other people.
Yes.
So you don't even realize the things that are happening before you until you start to look to God. Mm-hmm. You don't even see all of the things falling into place that he's doing until you fully sit down and you're like, oh my gosh, I get it now. I understand why you put me through A, B, so I could get to C. Mm-hmm. That's perfect. Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you on the next episode.
Whatever it takes to save my son. My mom, people told her, look, when you pray that prayer, you got to be serious. God's going to get his attention. And I knew I was dying. I knew it. And he told me, I'll never forget that day. He says, you're either going to live for me or you're going to die and go to hell. Wow. And I said,